Today, I wanted to have a look at another strange book, something of a continuation of Be Here Now, similar themes and characters. I was recently in the local bookshop and I was saying to the chap, uh, do you have anything about people in an isolation tank taking LSD and in telepathic communication with dolphins? And he said, had I tried the Bible? I said, I had, but I was really looking for more dolphin action. And he suggested this John Lilly, center of the Cyclone, looking into inner space. And John Lilly was another very strange character coming out of that original countercultural era, post World War II, 1950s to 1970s, part of that academic system that then went into very weird, far out territory. And probably popularized with the movie Altered States, the 1980s Ken Russell movie. Ken Russell, master of phantasmagorical schlock. Ken Russell gets a bit dismissed or forgotten these days, but I absolutely think Tommy was one of the best films of the 70s, or if not one of the best films ever made. If you want to get into what happens when people pursue spiritual truth and enlightenment and end up in cults. It's a very funny thing, if you watch the story or the documentary about Osho and then watch Tommy, it's almost exactly the same story, which is rather amusing. Anyway, so John Lilly was another of these academics who got into experimenting with LSD and trying to communicate with dolphins and seeing what happens to human consciousness when it's deprived of all external stimulation, and got into the whole thing of flotation tanks, which now bizarrely is just another consumer option in the new age and alternative medicine, etc. You can probably find a flotation tank to be rented in any large city in the Western world. Anyway, I was randomly perusing this book, and it opens right on mention of Baba Ram Das. I'll come back to this in a moment. I had this bookmark, Awakening from the Dream. It's an ugly thing to put watermarks, so unappealing, visually unappealing to put horrible watermarks over all your videos. But it's inevitable that people don't want to process their own experiences and just copy what other people are doing. So it's somewhat of a necessity. I won't show you what's on the other side of this because I'll save that for real life. But it's handy to put the name here, which is the title, the channel, rather than anybody's name. Because if you have it this way around, this would be a sign of peace, and people would suggest that this was meant to be. Hang on a second. Let's see. Let's explain this for a second. That the peace sign was meant to be a symbol of the wings of a B-52 bomber, and you can see images online where the B-52 is overlaid on the peace sign. It was meant to suggest that inversion of the weapon of war that was carpet bombing Vietnam in the 60s and 70s. Because originally, I think one of the early peace signs was a dove drawn by Picasso, if I remember correctly. But that was sort of too complex of an image to be popularized. So instead, we got this as the peace sign, which is so part of popular culture, really. But it's also the inversion of the tree of life representing death. And as a rune, it's like strength and protection. And also very handy bookmark. If you ever get one of these in person, watch out, they're probably quite a strange character. Anyway, I was saying about John Lilly. I randomly opened this the other day and I saw here he's talking about Baba Ram Das. So let's have a look. Another look at mysticism, chapter 6. Let's see. Okay. Since I'd been through an extremely intensive 6 weeks of workshops at Esalen, I was a bit tired and decided to rest at Gorda Ranch. In the workshops, I had not found what I'd been hunting for. I had not found any help in my search for explanations of or further access to spaces I'd learned about in the isolation tank experiments with LSD. I had found new spaces having to do with the planet-side trip with the help of Fritz Perls and other leaders at Esalen. The missing part was beyond the limits that the Esalen group put on their own experiences in the then current emphasis on the here and now, and on doing a better job of the planet-side trip. In the workshops I took, the mystical side was left out. Then a coincidence occurred that helped me to move more freely in the direction I was seeking. Baba Ram Das arrived at the ranch for a 6-week stay. I met him there for the first time. I'd heard of him as the Harvard psychologist Dick Albert, who in the early days of LSD had worked with Timothy Leary until both of them were expelled from Harvard for their drug experiments. Dick was someone who had been through the drug scene, who had then gone to India and spent a year with a guru studying yoga. I should really put this there. Let's see. And returned to the United States as Baba Ram Das. He had been through most of the severe disciplines of yoga, pursuing the Ashtanga or 8-limbed yoga. He had lived in rather severe conditions in his own small hut, bathing every morning in an icy cold mountain stream and spending most of his days doing the exercises assigned by his guru. From Ram Dass's example and from watching him teach, I received a lot of first-hand information about yoga. He introduced me to the writings of Patanjali, who presented the basic yoga assumptions in 196 simple statements, sutras, written about the time of Aristotle, 400 BC. During the next few weeks, I obtained 10 different translations of Patanjali, including 2 giving the original Sanskrit. The most useful of these was The Science of Yoga by I.K. Taimani. Then it's interesting, if you go to here, Quest paperback, published by the Theosophical Publishers. See, all these things always go back to the same links, roots. It's always the same people. When we think of these things as new innovations, they're actually very, very old. This stuff is actually very, very old influence, or possibly a deliberate splintering of Western civilization since the 19th century, going past 1848, etc. Anyway, I began my first sorties into the various types of meditation. I tried the concentration, contemplation, samyam type exercises from Patanjali. In these exercises, one concentrates upon a single object, either outside oneself or in one's mind, long enough and intently enough so that one finally fuses with the object, and the seer fuses with the seen. I'd also been reading Ramana Maharishi and his directions in which he said to meditate in the question, who am I? One answer is, I am not the seer, I am not the seen. Following the directions of Pantajali and the leads that I had laid out in the human biocomputer, I found a further extension of the meditation exercise. And it's interesting, even going back as far as the 60s, 70s, they're using the metaphor and analogy of computers in relation to human beings and consciousness. All of that tech bro stuff goes back to these people, listening to the Grateful Dead, etc. The new, more expanded meditation went as follows. My brain is a huge biocomputer. I am the self meta programmer in this biocomputer. The brain is housed in a body. The mind is the software of the computer. These are the basic assumptions put forth in the human biocomputer. The key to meditation was, who am I? Answer, I am not my body, I am not my brain, I am not my mind, I am not my opinion of me. Later, this was to be expanded into the more powerful 5-part meditation. I am not the biocomputer, I am not the programmer, I am not the programming, I am not the programmed, I am not the program. When the meditation had progressed to the latter point, I suddenly was able to break loose from the biocomputer. The programmer, the programming, the program, and the programmed, and sit aside from my mind, from my brain, from my body, and watch them operate and exist separately from me. I have to keep pausing slightly because it's very awkward to get this nicely on camera. Thus, for me, Patanjali was expanded and rephrased into a more modern terminology. The old seer was part of the programmer. The old seen was one of a series of programs. There was some overlap between the concepts, but the new concept included far more than the old one did. That which is programmed and the programming process itself were not represented in the Patanjali forms. Other meditations from other writers, such as watching one's thoughts go by, watching the thinking process, and watching the thinker, would be a closer yet incomplete approximation of the new point of view. The programming view, metaprogramming, is a far more powerful point of view than any of the older ones. It has the advantage of being constructible in modern computers for further study. It is also readily teachable to those who know something of computers and computing and computer programs and computer programming rather. Having experienced several workshops and having given several workshops, I went on and wrote a series of metaprograms in blank verse that summarized where I was at the time and where I wanted to be in the future. I dictated these on a hillside above Gorda Ranch early one morning after dawn while the birds were singing in that inspiring Big Sur setting. The rest of this chapter gives the metaprograms of the summer of 1969. Of mountains and molehills. Where there's a mountain, there must be a molehill under there somewhere. John Hammondtree of Big Sur. Often one has the feeling of climbing a mountain for weeks, months, years. Later one finds it was only a molehill. One was crawling along the level ground. The steep slope was only imagined. One was creating the steep slope. The mountain was one's own imaginings, one's own work directives. We make work of our life to seem virtuous to ourselves. Blaming others and circumstances of money and of culture, one's pride, vanity, and the precious opinion of what one is and of what one is becoming through mountain climbing creates the mountain slope. Look at me, look at how far I've climbed up the mountain. I'm higher than you are. If you're higher than I am, I started lower than you did and have really climbed further. My mountain is steepest. To see that all mountains are small molehills, that all human climbing is the delusion of a dream, move into planetary orbit, and looking down, See that all mountains are molehills. Move up and away from thyself. Look back down the past of thyself. There are no mountains, no molehills. There is only a dream of past encounters, illusions of past strivings, dream slopes of dreamt opposition. In storage, there is nothing but recordings of crawlings on the face of one small planet. So why not enjoy bliss and ecstasy while still a passenger in this body on this spacecraft? Dictate thy own terms as a passenger. The transport company has a few rules, but it may be that we dream up the company and its rules too. There is only internal peace, internal bliss, internal transforms of everything into joy. In the one place one really lives, there are no mountains, no molehills, just essential core of me and transcendent bliss. And one wonders, did he ever listen to Donovan? Because first there was a mountain, and you get the idea. Beyond vanity. When I look back into my apparent past life, I find faulty recordings in my mind. I made records, rather something made records, probably very good ones. I fought the recordings, edited them to fit my expectations of me, vain in my pride of me. I created the false image of me. I patched and repaired broken me, yet I was never broken, never repaired, only this image of me. All my work was illusory. The repair bench, the image was imagined. I have always been, always will be me. The true recordings are there if I want to feel experience them as they really happened. But why look back into non-existence, into old files long past, only to look back and know that something did a good job of recording? Recording what? The future of me, is there any without fright, pain, grief, without further editing, repair, false recording? Is this all I do? Juggle a truth into falsity? Is this the work for this trip? I lay the recordings of falseness alongside the true recordings. I compare the two. I suffer in the comparison. Why? I value too much the image of me that I raised too high. In the comparison, big image becomes little man. Little man suffers. The big me is a repeat of an old recording of treating records falsely, falsifying the little, making it big and imagining it big. Here and now in the future, here's and now. I hear and I know. I hears and I now knows then. Something else made the good recordings I edited. Why not let me make good recordings by resigning as editor, repairman? Let me, just me, hearing and knowing, accepting what is and what is not, equally as true. Beyond me is much I haven't even imagined. It has always been beyond me. Here's the joyful pursuit, beyond here and now to infinity, to the nullity of the creative void. That seems quite reminiscent of Scientology, and Hubbard was coming out of a similar place, I think. Inspection of expectations, kata and anastrophic. I expected thee to do, I expected thee to be what? Thou expects me to do, thou expects me to be what? I expect them to do, I expect them to be what? I expect thou expectest what? I expect they expect what? I expect thou expectest they expect what? When thou expectest, I expect thee to expect what they expect. I ask, why expect? I answer, because I expect too. I am here to live up to my expectations of me, am I? But what are my expectations of me? They expect me to blank, do they? Do they really care? Thou expect me to blank. Does it thou? Does it thou really expect care? Care for expectations, expecting to persist in past patterns. Mine, thine, theirs. Expecting to search for new patterns, new expectations. Expecting to strive for escape from expectations. Expecting to evade old expectations of me, of thee, of them. I expect my expectations are the expectations of others, not mine. I imagine what thine expectations are and assume they are mine. I expect what I write of expectations. I expect that when I write of expecting is read, it will start expectations of me and thee and them. I search, I write, expecting further expecting. Why search? Why write? Why expect? Why thee? Why them? Why me? Great men, expectations, meditation, love, and levitation. Is there really such a thing as a great man? Are we not all microbes on a mud ball rotating around a type G star 2/3 of the way from galactic center to the indefinite edge in one small galaxy in the universe of galaxies? So, what is a great man? What is a messiah, an avatar, an enlightened one? In the microbe's imagination, there is a theory that he is not a microbe. His theory says there are beings greater than I, of which I am a part. All I must do is realize my true self, see my soul, realize my Atman, join universal mind, become one with God, be spread throughout the universe, tune in on the infinite, transform the clay to the divine, live and think right, and join God and the angels. Of course, since he is only a microbe on a mud ball, why not have fun with the super game? Microbial. A group of microbes say to one another, "We are great, we have found a great man. The great man tells us how to realize our true nature, how to be enlightened. He tells us we are each great, and he will show us the way to shed microbial illusions of being a microbe. Join up. Here's the path. Follow my lead. I have the truth, but you must have discipline, my discipline. The universal law, through me, is revealed. Expectate, through me, meditate. Here's how, love and levitate, as I did. To believe in something. There's something to believe in, somehow, somewhere, within inner space or without, in outer space. The existence theorem. It exists, must be positive and whole. From where oneself is now, one believes that one can get belief in something by some way, root program. If the way root program is seen to include changes in self, then one more belief is that one can change. One changes to believe in something. The search for the something cannot be done before belief that something exists. Something to believe in. The something to believe in is greater somehow than one's present self. It, something, can be future self, changed. It can be something or someone human outside oneself. It can be something out there among the planets, the stars. It can be something everywhere, inside and outside. Something far beyond man, something you learn from and communicate with. Belief in something, concentrated, purposeful, determined, comes hard. Once believing in something beyond oneself, then it comes more easily. Bhakti karma. To get to our thing, let us speak in the dyad, us. I have my thing, you have your thing, we have our thing. Our thing is not mine, is not yours, our thing is ours. I know my thing, you know your thing, we know our thing. Which begins to sound like funkadelic lyrics. You do not know my thing, I do not know your thing. I know my part of our thing, you know your part of our thing. Our thing exists only in us. With no us, there is no our thing. We are our thing, only us. To get beyond our thing, beyond us, let us speak of them beyond us. Imagine a human being beyond you, beyond me. Imagine a non human being beyond a human being. Imagine a being beyond that non human being. Imagine God beyond all beings, yet all beings and being itself. To get back to our thing, to us. To the little boy in me, I am a god, you are a goddess. To the little girl in you, you are a goddess, I am a god. To the god in me, I am a little boy. To the goddess in you, to the goddess in you, you are a little girl. To the god in me. To God, we are two little beings dreaming of Him. To God, we are an extension of His being, little ones. So we are all one in God. Our thing is part of Him, our small part. To get back to us, the little boy loves the little girl, loves the little boy. The God loves the goddess, loves the God. I love you, love me, in God we love. Jnana Stage 1. I don't have to understand. I know they run the universe and they run me. No matter my opinion of their job, good or bad, they keep on doing it. They do the job assigned them by those above them. So I do the job they assign me. When necessary, they tell me. I listen to them. I ask them. They hear me. They help me. Jnana Stage 2. I am thee, thou art me, we are one. I love me, love thee, love the one. Thou lovest thee, lovest me, lovest the one loves us. Jnana Stage 3. I am them, thou art them, I, thou, they are one. I love them, love thee, love the one. Thou lovest them, lovest me, lovest thee, lovest the one loves all. Jnana Stage 4. Thou art me, they are me. They, thou, I are one. They love thee, love me, love the one. The one loves them, loves us. The one is love. Limits of belief transcended. At first, one's limits are set by the belief I am centered in my physical brain. That which one believes to be true is true or becomes true at first within limits to be found experimentally. These limits themselves are beliefs to be transcended. I am not limited by the known physical senses, known physical signals sent, received by my brain. Transcended, these limits are left behind. I send, receive messages by means unknown with unknown entities greater than me. Beyond transcendence is an infinite variety of unknowns. I move from my brain into other universes and spaces, other states of being once lived. These unknowns are no longer unknown. In the other universes and spaces, the other states of being are teachers, guardians. Beyond these unknowns, now known, is full, complete truth. The guardians, teachers make me aware, help me be aware, and help me to experience when I'm ready realities beyond belief, beyond proof, beyond demonstration, beyond theory, beyond imagination. Beyond that truth, full and complete, are unknowns. The teacher's teacher take over my lessons. New unknowns become known. The cycle repeats, mastered. These unknowns are transcended. Sutra 1, Book 4, Pantajali. Perfections proceed from birth, or from light containing herbs, or from mantra, or from self-discipline, or from samadhi. The Gayatri mantra, the earthly, atmospheric, and celestial spheres. Let us contemplate the wondrous solar spirit of the divine creator. May he direct our minds. Brahma Gayatri Shastra. May we know the Supreme Spirit. Let us contemplate the Supreme Reality, and may that Brahman direct us. So there is John Lilly writing late 60s into the early 70s. And it's always interesting seeing how these fringe conversations have become part of social norms and banality of tarot card readers on YouTube and New Age self-help books. You can see how they were using Theosophy and Hinduism as a kind of intellectual framework to their minds, leaving behind their programming. But as I said before, what seems to happen is that people go through a process of deprogramming and liberation, and at that moment of liberation, then a new program gets put in, and people end up trapped in dogmas of Scientology or Hare Krishnas or Jehovah's Witnesses, etc. So they give us truth, but then they get lost in a kind of innocence and naivety and gullibility. I mean, they're talking about getting in contact with entities, and the same thing is happening now with all these people doing endless experiments with DMT and believe they're creating relationships and getting information. But it doesn't occur to anybody to stop and consider that these entities are actually using human biology to experience this realm and for them to enter our realm when we think we're accessing their higher dimensions. They are also using us to access our lower dimensions and influence us. I mean, and that's where all this stuff goes into really weird territory about like CERN and opening portals and uh, opening, the event horizon to hell or whatever. And we like to believe, uh, we can achieve godhood and Christ consciousness, and this is all a sleeping dream to be awoken to. I think it's a very simple and profound mistake to go down that road, to start thinking that you are God, creating your own reality. It's just not true. I believe we can awaken from this dream in our ordinary life and see all these patterns playing out, and seeing how things that seem like destiny is when we're just asleep to our free will. And those big life events that come up, like, you move house, or people get married, or have children, or take a particular job, or move country. And you can look back at these sort of cycles and temporal markers, and in some ways they can seem destined for you. But that's when you're sleepwalking through life. To awaken is where you start really consciously choosing what to do, what to spend your time on. And we're, of course, surrounded by technocratic distractions and technology, which totally takes advantage of our natural organic biology that was never meant to come into contact with all this advanced technology. So you can go down a kind of science fiction route and consider, did all this technology, from the microchip or whatever, um, come from other realms? Was it Aleister Crowley, introducing the grey aliens to us, or were the Nazis getting their plans for how to design a UFO and how to have uh, an anti-gravity floating bell? Uh, were these from the civilized alien civilizations of the Hollow Earth or whatever? It's all bizarre, wild stuff to speculate on. But in our ordinary lives, we're in this kind of predicament of being organic while being constantly massaged and altered and processed and evolved into human Borg Genesis 2.0. So we can consciously choose, to how we engage with technology, how much time we want to give to technology, use technology as a tool. But we see how the attention span keeps shrinking, and we can wonder about spiritual truths of what we should really be doing. And then you can think, the ultimate spiritual realization we can have in our ordinary lives is that you need to reach a point where you're happy sitting in a room doing nothing, not creating karma or chaos, or seeking to satiate base desires that can never be satiated. But when you come out of those loops, you can manage to just sit still. It can feel like an accomplishment to come back to yourself. Um, but you can't live in that state of passivity. It's the same thing of there were some Christians waiting for Christ to return and set fire to the earth, and then they ascend in the rapture. I can't believe that we're meant to live our lives just sitting in a room doing nothing, just waiting for Godot to arrive. But at the same time, we're not meant to just uh, live in distraction and entertainment. And if you're only living in reaction, you're not experiencing the cosmic gift of free will. So we kind of look back and try and understand, first of all, where these threads and streams are coming from on the mountain of truth, which is another book about the beginnings of those countercultural movements in 1920s Switzerland, and how we get to today, as I said before, where every small town or village has people doing yoga and people buying incense along with their supplements in the health food shop. How did we get from there to here over the last 150 or more years? What's valuable, what's rubbish, what's waking us up and what's putting us to sleep? I think like a lot of people in the kind of new age are so involved in wishful thinking and with no real um, awareness of the historical roots and where these ideas came from. Ideas are a very dangerous thing to get a life of their own. And you wonder how much of this stuff encourages a sense of solipsism and spiritual narcissism. There are truths there to discover, but we are like children playing in all this energy. We really don't understand what we're doing. When you put a piece of blotter paper under your tongue and believing you can cheat your way to enlightenment, it's like strapping yourself to a rocket and arriving in another universe, popping through. It's like getting in a helicopter and going to the top of Everest without any effort or spiritual framework or foundation. You're going into a realm of chaos and illusion and delusion. And all those early pioneers like Lilly and Timothy Leary and Ram Dass, they all sort of turned to Hinduism and like Tibetan Buddhism, the Tibetan Book of the Dead and all that, Tomorrow Never Knows, all that. Um, and, it's like the pleasure of exotic things rather than understanding the spiritual truths that are right there in their own Western traditions from ancient Greece to the writing of the Bible. But religion offers social control, and there's no space for people in a church to talk about spiritual experiences, which is all that really matters. It's the conversation the individual can have with the divine. And you can't cheat your way through any of these processes. Like with anything, karma always comes back to bite you in the end. I mean, half of YouTube now is like totally fraudulent with people just copying other people's videos and re-uploading them or putting them on TikTok. Uh, and now, just people watching generative AI videos, and they're really being nothing more than like a blob of flesh being stimulated by the flickering of photons that are tickling their brain stem. And you think, you're just going back into Plato's cave. And it's all very strange because all of those psychedelic pioneers like Leary and then to Terence McKenna, and you can see in Lilly's own words there about all these computer metaphors, is that they were all uh, on that trip, that kind of ego immortalist trip to put the mind into the machine, and that to me can only be the ultimate prison and purgatory. Um, so if you go swimming in the astral realm, be aware there are sharks and eels and jellyfish that will sting you. And there are things that are using your energy when you're quite convinced you're using their energy. So ultimately, further thoughts on awakening from the stream will come, but this is like another temporal marker for your consideration.